Does your work energize you? Does it make your impact on the world? Welcome to Start Anew, the show that looks beyond success into freedom, fulfillment, and your passion-driven career. Join your host, Sumbul Sang, for inspiring stories and bite-sized training to help you start anew with clarity. And now, here is Sumbul.
Don, how are you feeling? Are you ready for part 2?
I think you're a splendid host, my friend.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you.
No, I'm not. I always tell people I'm not kind. I'm an asshole. And so if you weren't a great host, I would say, hey, that's nice. Thanks. You're really, really good at this. Thank you.
Wow, that means a lot to me for someone who's been doing it for a while. Ooh.
Well, you're really good at it. You're very insightful. Your timing is good. Your tempo is good. I'm very excited for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, why don't you put your coaching hat on and tell us, what can a person do if they're feeling unfulfilled by the work that they do?
The first thing that I tell people to do is stop. And if I'm in person, there's this blank look that goes over their face. If I'm on a Skype call, they say, what are you talking about? And I said, well, here's the drill.
No.
I co-authored a book 25 years ago called The Lemming Conspiracy. You know what lemmings are, Sumbul? Well, it's a legend, but they're little Arctic rodents that the legend has it. It's a legend that they gather together for some inexplicable reason every handful of years and run over the cliffs to their deaths, right? It's called the lemming. They're called lemmings, and that's the metaphor that came out in some literature. But it's a metaphor for life, because what has happened since we've been civilized people is we have these systems that we're brought up in, and they work. You know, our family systems, our school systems, our spiritual religious systems, and our corporations and institutions, they have structure and they have goals and strategies, and they propel a certain segment of our society, certain segments of us forward. They're not us. So I can't tell you after 390 interviews on our podcast, how many people have said that they had to break away from the well-meaning intentions of their parents and family and friends to see themselves clearly, because it's very hard. You know, like I said, I was set off to go be a professor, and I'm smart. I could have been a good professor in something and done that, but it wasn't me. So some inner voice, some wee small voice told me to take this chance on entrepreneurship, and it changed my life. So I say stop, and they say, okay, that's great. Well, what do I do next? And I say, well, the answer's in there. It was born there. That's what we say at the end of the show. It's in our DNA, whatever it is, whether it's the talent in you that's supposed to be driving your entire career or satisfying parts of your career. It doesn't matter. It's in there. And until you get quiet, and however you do that, you can take walks. You can just unplug from the media. You can, spend 20 minutes a day, being by yourself with no interruptions, and just listen. Do an audit at work. Whatever you're doing as a teacher, lawyer, that doesn't matter. And just feel how it feels. Are you in the flow most of the day? Or do you feel that time just goes by because you're doing, the work is so gratifying? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi at the University of Chicago wrote a book called Flow, and that's what happens to us when we get into those states, is that we work effortlessly. So just do an audit. And that's the starting point. And most people never stop to do it. The old thing that they talk about, the palliative nurse Bonnie Rare, who wrote the book Words Before Dying, I think it's what it's called, is that most people...
The regrets of the dying, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The regrets of the dying. Well, what's the number one regret?
Not living a life true to yourself.
Hello. It's the number one regret. Well, that's the reason I started the podcast. That's the reason I started the Highlands program 27 years ago, because that's, for me, it's just a shame for the individual and for the rest of society at large. So you got to stop.
I love how you call the strategy something as simple as stop, but it is so powerful to stop and reflect. So I like how you talk about doing an audit, and so asking yourself questions like, are you in the flow or not? So what do we do next? We've asked ourselves some questions, we reflected a little, and we have some insights now.
One of the ways that I'd say to listeners to really take advantage of this quiet time, and by the way, it's going to take, this is a hard thing to say, but it's going to take most of your listeners, because life is so pressing and stressful, it's going to take a while before they can get enough quiet time. They just have to make that their priority, but they must make it their priority or just settle for second best. And so journaling is a good way to do that. You might journal for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. Just get out a notebook and get in a quiet place, and you do it early in the morning or late at night or whenever you can be quiet, and just journal some of these feelings and events and things that are happening. It's profound what happens when you journal. So after you've got that information and you've reflected on it, the next piece is from our friend Aristotle, reportedly, that he said, know yourself. And it's just what you said at the beginning of your show. It starts with self-awareness. In my life experience, that's the biggest challenge, because we're so multifaceted. We have intellect, we have spirituality, we have emotionality, we have physicality, we have so many dimensions of ourselves. But before you can create a vision, which is the point of this exercise, a personal vision for your life and career, you've got to have an understanding of who you are. The good news is there are all kinds of modalities to do that. There are all kinds of assessments that you can take to, just do some research. Google. That's actually what we're going to do in our mastermind group. Is we're going to make the participants in that group aware of all the possible assessments, and most of them are free, some are not, but they're vital and key. I mean, once you get into the know yourself part, you'll see the underlying reasons of the fact that maybe you were dissatisfied, because there'll be some obvious reasons in terms of your personal style or in terms of your communication, problem solving, and learning styles of why you were not in your sweet spot.
Once we've discovered, why we are not in our sweet spot, so it might be something like we realize that our current job actually requires skills that we don't have, or it requires creative thinking when, say, I'm an analytical thinker or something along the lines. So
don't go past that. That's a really great insight. That's exactly what you'll find out if you go through the right stuff. Exactly. I mean, you could be a just what you said, a creative thinker, an outside the box, right brain thinker, and you could be in a job that requires this incredible analytical analysis, and you're okay at it, but you're not brilliant at it, so it just stresses you. So that's a very good point. It's interesting. When you start out on this journey, the first thing I'd say to listeners, there's no glib answer here. Everybody wishes there was a glib answer. There's something I can do, some book I can read, some test I can take, some course I can listen to. No, sorry, Charlie, it's not. There isn't. If you can get quiet and you can get some self-awareness based on different tools and insights and journaling, that is the biggest hurdle. I don't know what percentage, but it's certainly a large piece. And then you can move into all those pieces about how the rest of it puts together to develop a personal vision and a strategic plan. We did an infographic based on 30 plus years of thinking about this. This isn't Don Hutcheson's point of view. This is Don Hutcheson's amalgam of the greatest thinkers of all times, from Aristotle to Jim Rohn, to Tony Robbins, Chester Bowles, and What Color's Your Parachute. So this is an overview. There are many other myriad parts to it. Just in 1 minute, I'll share what those things are so that listeners will see the scope and the depth of the issue. The first is it's extremely complicated, so don't look for quick answers. We've covered know yourself. Then the idea of know your life's purpose is there. That's a whole different level. Understanding your innate talents, which we've talked about a little bit. Realizing that you've got to take full responsibility for this, not anybody else. This is up to you. It's on your watch. That you have to have goals that inspire you, that are doable. There's a whole discipline to goal setting. That you have to understand that you're not just your brain, you're your emotional intelligence and your insights, and a whole spiritual side. that you have to have mentors, whatever ilk that you can find, because as Rome said, or one of the greats said, you're the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. I couldn't agree more. You have to realize that it's about as scary as anything you're ever going to do. I think it's the most scary thing we do. That's all right. You can do this. You absolutely can do this. Every single person can do this, but you've got to face the fear, and you've got to have enough tools and infrastructure to get through it. You have to be mindful about it and be organized and disciplined, because this is something that, I've started some companies and written some books and everything, and that's required a great degree of organization and discipline that I've cultivated over time, because nobody's born with that, and I'm good at it, but can always be better. But you got to be great at this part. You've got to learn. The other piece is you have to do this with maximum health. You have to do this with spiritual, mental, emotional, physical health. And in today's world, that's one of the hardest things to come by. And finally, you've got to trust your instincts on this. Like I made the decision to take the road less traveled in my first career decision. This is the hardest part, to step out of that lemming conspiracy and really trust your gut and listen to that wee small voice. It's there. It's in our DNA. But with a process like this, there are lots of processes, but this is about as comprehensive as I've seen. Then you're able to live a life of success, satisfaction, and freedom.
I love that. Don, thank you for joining us, inspiring us, and coaching us today. Before we wrap up, please share the best way we can connect with you online, and then we'll say goodbye. Thank you.
It's been a great pleasure being with you today, too. I'm very excited about what you're doing with your show. Congratulations on that. You can go to discoveryourtalentpodcast.com/contact. And there you can talk to me. You can tell us you want information. You can make a comment. You can suggest guests or ask questions. And we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Start Anew Show. We invite you to be more than a passive listener. Be a starter. Join our community and snag exclusive freebies from Symbol and her guests at letstartanew.com. Create your vision of freedom and fulfillment right here on the Start Anew Show.